And give me 1 second. I've got messages also from students. Somebody's asking me, is this part of the final exam? Yes, it will be part of the final exam, but this is not something that I'm asking you to submit. We had started something before. For that, you had to, this is what we had done in the previous class. And that you had to submit a link. Right now, you don't have to submit anything to me. But is this part of the exam? Yes. So final exam, it will be on it. All right. So let me go back and I'm going to just Google it. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Create React app using Vite. So I want to be very specific as to what I'm doing, and I want you to do, I'm going to follow the instructions. I'm going to tell you exactly where you need to go, and that's exactly how we are going to be doing it. So, and I'm doing it in front of you so that you understand that if you try to do this on your own and you're not following my instructions, you will end up messing up one way or another. So I'm Googling this right now and it's giving me these instructions. And these instructions are partly correct, but they are not fully correct. So I will just copy this code. But then when I'm pasting it in mine, create a new React app using, and I'm using a very specific command. I'm gonna let me actually. So I do not want so I want it to look like this. Now all of you already have npm installed. We used it last week. We've been using it all the time. So this is the command you're gonna use. So npm create Vite at latest. So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna go into VS Code blank folder and I'm gonna paste this command in there. So npm create Vite at latest. Like I said, there are many different ways of creating application, and when you create them differently, uh, there'll be slight variations, and it becomes very difficult to teach if all of you have different variations, and for me to grade as well. So I want everybody to have exactly the same thing, and this is the way I want you to create it. So I'm going to maximize my screen, and so when I enter my command, it will ask me some questions. And it's saying, first thing, what is the name of the project? So I want everybody to have the exact same name. And let's just call it November 3. Then I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to give me, now when you see this, use your arrow keys to go up and down. What we are doing is installing this thing called React. And I'm going to take a screenshot. So if somebody is not here today, and they ask you, tell them to make sure that they follow these instructions here, because it has very specific meaning. I need it done in a very specific way, this so that we avoid um, having a problem. So right now we're working on a project name, November 3rd. When you hit enter, it asks you for a framework, and notice React is checked, and you do that using arrow keys. And once I have selected React, I'm going to hit enter. Then it's asking me for a variant, and the variant we're using is this one, TypeScript plus something called SWC. So I'm gonna take a screenshot of that. And I'm gonna paste it in the notes. So what are we using? Something called TypeScript and SWC. And you've heard me say JavaScript, JavaScript all the time. TypeScript is basically a variation of JavaScript. And I don't want to get into it any more than that in terms of explanation, but these two are essentially identical. But I want to use this variation, TypeScript. Why? It helps us identify errors which you will not necessarily be able to identify if you were using pure JavaScript. So everybody pretty much nowadays is using not JavaScript, but TypeScript, which is essentially the same thing, but it helps us avoid errors. And I don't want to get too much more into it from a theoretical perspective. Just be aware that this is what we're going to use. So I go back in here, I've selected TypeScript and SWC, and then it says use rolled on wheat, and its experimental answer is no. Install with npm and start now. Answer is yes. So again, I'm going to take a screenshot. I'll paste it. So you're able to come back and duplicate it, or anyone who missed today's lecture is able to go in and manage. So it gives you a lot of other instructions and they are irrelevant. So ignore those. I'm actually gonna leave this. And I'm gonna come down to start my application now. So yes, and give it a minute or two. It doesn't take too long for it to create the application. So now this application is actually running. It's important that at this point you stop it from running, and I do that by pressing Control C or Control X also, but Control C would be better. It gets you out of there. So after this, what you want to do is make sure you are in the November 3rd folder. So at this point, make sure that you are in the application folder, not where you ran these commands. So you want to make sure you're in the application folder. So how do we do that? You're going to go up there, File, Open Folder. And for me, I have everything under this folder called React. And I have a payroll, which I don't want to get into, but I have a November 3rd folder. So once I go into November 3rd folder, I'll say select. And I'll be able to see these files, and you should be able to see these files. And you can close this AI agent out. This is the problem with Microsoft. They're always trying to sell you something. And this thing, VS Code we are using is a Microsoft product. It's a very good one, but this stuff they open up, it's very annoying for me at least. I don't like it. So you can go and you should see something that looks like this. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes. Raise your hand and let me know if you are seeing this. And if for some reason you are not really following along with me, raise your hand so I'm not waiting on you. Any issues, let me know. Or like if you need more time, let me know. If students don't respond, I just remove them from the session. So make sure that you either raise your hand or send me a message. Otherwise, I'm going to remove you from the class. Because that tells me somebody is just starting the class, then they are disappearing. Okay, fine. You need to select React by using arrow keys. I mentioned that several times. Up and down, you move up and down using your arrow keys. Mouse will not work. So, David, update me. Jesse, update me. And Matthew, update me. I'm waiting on the three of you. Either send me a message or raise your hands. But if I get neither, that tells me that I'm just waiting on somebody who's not actually in the class right now. David and Matthew, you have not responded. If you guys have access to them through WhatsApp, just message them that they'll need to um, reconnect with the class if you know these guys. And today is a little bit more critical because the stuff we're doing, you're not going to be able to do easily. Again, I'm giving this, but a lot of steps are involved, so it's a little bit more critical that you actually follow along. And I need to make sure that students are following along today. I'm not losing you guys. All right, please lower your hand. And everyone, please lower your hands at this time. Jahel, please lower your hand. Same thing with Tishan. All right. So this thing we're gonna, whatever it is right now, we're gonna run it as is. And the way you do that is, we've done this before. You're gonna go under View, and there is Terminal, and there is a shortcut. This is for Windows, but there's a similar shortcut for Mac. So you're gonna open up a terminal, which is down here, and you used it already because you installed it using terminal. And right here now, we are going to run this program. So the way you run it is, we have done this before, npm run dev. So you're gonna type npm run dev to run your program. So npm run dev, and I'm gonna just make it bold. So I'm doing it right here. And once you run it, now you no longer need live server. Before, not last class, but the class before that, we were using live server. Now you don't need it because we are using different technology. This is pretty much what is used in real world. So it's going to open up this thing for us, and you want to go to localhost 5173. So I'm gonna open up my browser at localhost 5173. So by clicking on it, and you will see I have an application running. It says November 3rd. For everybody, this is what it looks like. So make sure it's running and it's like this. You don't need to raise your hand or anything, but if it's not running, let me know through chat that there is a problem. And if there is a situation where you're going to log in and not be here, or log in and then record, um, uh, let me know that, okay, I'm not going to be in class. So I'm not waiting on you to make sure that you're able to catch up. So at this point, send me a message if it's not working. Otherwise, you do not message me. So, Hein, I'm not understanding your message. Tishan, what is happening? when you are typing it. What type of an error message are you getting? Do not send me a screenshot, but send me a message explaining in more detail what's happening. And I'm assuming no one else had a problem because I've only 2 students who are messaging me about a potential problem. So, Tishan, let me know what is the error message saying, but do not send a screenshot. Now, you can leave this up and running like this, and we are going to go in and make some changes and then see uh, updates over here. So, Tishan, I want you to make sure that there is no extra space or anything like that at the end or before. Make sure it's exactly like I have in the notes. So go back in the notes and look at it, and it should say npm run dev exactly like this. We've been using npm before. You would have used it just a few minutes ago to install React via Vite. So your npm should be working. That means running this command should not be giving you any error message unless you put some sort of a space at the end or whatever. So type it in and it should be working. If not, then I'll come back to you in a little while and I will take a look at what's happening. So I'm now gonna do not close this, but come back to November 3rd. And we're gonna talk about a lot of the stuff here. So I want you to open up this thing called SRC, source. And okay, so both for Jahal and Tishan, make sure you're in the correct folder. So one of the problems that often happens is you did not follow the next step. Make sure that you are in the application folder, not where you originally ran the commands. In other words, if I'm in here, I ran my commands up here. This is where I was when I ran my commands. Now, after you've run it, you will see November 3rd. Then you must make sure you go to the correct folder, which for me is, I'm going to go in React and then November 3rd. And then I'm going to just select that folder. So when I did that, my application most likely stopped working. You see that? So I'm going to restart it, but make sure you're in this November 3rd folder. So I'm just going to say npm run dev, start it, and now if I go back and refresh it, it should be working. So the 2 students, Jahal and Tishan, I believe, if you're having that issue, this may be the reason you're not in the correct folder. All right. So assuming now you are in the correct folder and you're running it, leave this running, and we are going to be making changes. So under this source folder, you have a bunch of stuff. So we're going to start off by deleting things we do not need. So I'm going to go under assets, and I'm going to delete this thing out, SVG and all of that. So that's what this symbol is. I don't want it. It's not part of my application. So I'm going to delete it from assets. Then this thing called app.css, I don't want it. I'm going to delete it. App.tsx is critical. We need it. Index.css, important. We need it. Main, important that we need it. So what you need, app, index, main. 3 files should be in there and nothing in your assets folder. So delete all files in the src dash assets folder, and then delete app.css and I'm not sure if there was another file that I deleted, but I think it was just app.css. I'm not remembering right now, but these are the 3 that we need. Okay, app, tsx, index, and main. And if I missed something, please let me know. But the file which was called app.css, get rid of it. Okay, so yes, already, yeah, I mentioned as such, you delete it. And at this particular point in time, if you need to ask me how you delete something or how you create a file, you're in the wrong class. You should know how to delete a file. You should know how to create a file. Why? We've been doing this since the beginning of the semester. We're halfway into the course. So please do not ask me at this point in time, how do you delete a file? This you need to be able to figure out. Because we're halfway, 7th or 8th class, and we'll be doing this over and over again. All right. I'm going to go into this thing called app.tsx. And we're going to be deleting a bunch of things out. And the reason we're doing that is when they created this project, they give you a whole bunch of stuff. Like they gave us this. We are starting our own project. We don't need all of this. They do this just so we know, yeah, our project is working. But when you're going to start your own project, every time now, you're going to have to delete all their junk out. So if I look up here, I don't need anything that's up here. And when I delete it, my application is going to get messed up. I'll get error messages, but that's okay. So I don't need anything that's up there. I'm going to delete it. I'm now starting to get error messages, and that's okay. I'm going to delete that. And then in here, I'm going to delete everything from up there till down here. And I even don't like the way they have this thing set up for export default app. It's not a good way of writing it, so I always do it like this. And I get rid of this thing at the bottom. So what you're seeing on the screen right now, this is what you're going to need every time you're creating a new web page. So exactly what you see, this is what you're going to need, nothing else. So this is the skeleton that we're going to be working with. Above is what is needed each time you create a page or component. And I'll explain what I mean by component. But this is our standard, okay? Over and over again. So make sure you delete everything out, and this is all you've got left. Now, if I go and look at my site now, this is what I get. It's just blank because I don't have anything in there. This is a skeleton. And let's go in and put something in there. So inside these, I'm going to create an H1. And you should already know what an H1 is. And I'm just going to put down November 3rd, accounting 343. And that's it. And I'm going to go see my web page. And I'm not seeing anything just yet. Let me try to refresh it. And now I'm seeing it. November 3rd, accounting 343. So if you don't see an update, all you have to do is refresh that page and it should start working. So you should be at this point right now. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but something like mine. Basically, you should see November 3rd, accounting 343. If anybody is having an issue, you're not seeing this, message me. Otherwise, you don't have to respond, don't have to raise hands or anything. But if it's not working, message me. And please do not send me screenshots. If there is an error message, explain to me what it is. And this is something I've said over and over again. Do not send me screenshots or files, attachments, etc. Okay, Cedric, what are you getting? What is happening? Are you getting an error message or it just looks different than mine? All right. So if you're getting a message like failed to resolve import, we will see. So what I'm going to do is go back. For me, this is what it should look like. You should not have anything else in this file except for what I've got. But make sure line 1 is exactly like mine. I'm just zooming in a bit so you guys are able to see clearly. Only in app.tsx, we did not touch anything else. make sure you have these 3 files and app.tsx. If you ended up deleting something else, then you're going to have a problem. If you have in app.tsx something else besides these 8 lines, you're going to have a problem. So I'm emphasizing it needs to look exactly like mine, and it is case sensitive. So you cannot, for example, just decide on your own that E is where the sentence begins for export, so I need to capitalize it. No, you don't. Exactly like I have it. All right. So I'm going to zoom back to what is generally normal, 100%. And for some reason, it did not do that. It told me it is doing it. Okay. So, all right, I'm back to my 100%. So for app.tsx, this is all we need. And I'm now going to close out of it. Make sure you have saved the file, obviously. I told you at the beginning of the semester to leave everything on with your files on autosave. Okay. But if you don't have it on autosave, make sure you're saving it. Now, all right. All right. So I'm going to move on. I think issues were resolved with students. Now, next thing is we're going to go under this thing called main.tsx and take a look at that. So main.tsx is not something you want to touch unless I tell you otherwise. So I'm going to emphasize this. Do not modify main.tsx unless I specifically tell you. You can mess things up big time if you modify main.tsx. So this file, I opened it. You don't want to touch this. Leave it exactly the way it is. Do not modify it. And I'm going to close out of this. And index.css, this is your CSS file. We will be changing it, but not just yet. So I'm going to have you delete everything and we'll be doing some stuff, but not just yet. This is your CSS file. Don't do anything to it for now, but we are going to be changing it. Even main.tsx, we're going to change it, but for right now, you leave it alone. So the files that you are going to be dealing with, everything is under source. So if when it sets up, you really are not going to touch anything except source folder. None of these other folders, unless I tell you specifically, you don't touch them. Under source, there's an app, index, main, and we really are not touching these two right now. We're going to do everything with app.tsx. Now, I am going to show you this thing, index.html. This is outside of the source folder. And in general, you're not going to touch this folder, this file. But I'm going to open it up and just show you what's in here. So this is the HTML page that is actually getting rendered. So everything we're going to be doing, will end up utilizing this page. So if I go in here, and please do not do this, and I put something in here, do not do this. A, B, C, D. I got A, B, C, D in here. Do not do this. Okay. I'm just showing you that every single page will end up using this. And you don't want to put anything in here. So why am I showing it to you? Because in here, the only thing that you may want to change is the title. Remember, I called it November 3rd, and this is title is what shows up in the browser up here. I don't want to call it November 3rd. Let's say I want to call it Accounting 343 November 3. So go ahead in your index.html file, change the title, which is on line 7, and make it the new title. So when you do that, your title will change up here. It will say Accounting 343, November 3rd. And notice I'm using a fave icon, which is not mine. We learned about fave icons in the previous class, and that's okay for right now. So go back down to this one and modify index.html. That's how you change the title. You don't change anything else in here. And once you've changed the title, and you will go and look, it should have changed it up there. If you are unable to change the title, let me know. Or this, and again, make sure that you save your files. And under File, there is an option for autosave. I'll just leave it on. All right. And I think we are all good. So it's 7:30. Take a 5-minute break. Usually I give a longer break. Today I am not feeling that great, so I'm just giving a 5-minute break so that we can continue. And my aim is to try to finish the class early, and we have 20 minutes of break built in. And so I'm going to try to finish the class a little bit early, and I will not be giving you as much of a break. So again, take a 5-minute break right now, and we'll continue at 7:35. All right, so it's 7:35 and we're gonna continue. So index HTML, the only thing you have to modify in there is the title and nothing else. So everything else, you have to make sure you leave it exactly the way it is. You don't mess things up. And I'm gonna close out of it. So for us to work on our website, creating a page, we're going to do this by everything we are going to be touching is under this source folder. So under the source folder, we are going to be modifying this file, which is called app.tsx. So I'm opening this up. And I'll start modifying it. So I'm going to just add another H2 and let's just call it React app using TypeScript. So I made some changes. I'm going to go see. Most of the time, you should not have to refresh your page. It should update them for you. Sometimes you will have to. If it's not updating, go in and refresh it. If it still doesn't work, which will happen depending on what type of changes you made, you may have to come down here and close this out. Do Control C to shut it. And you may have to restart your server, npm rundown, a second time, and then go back in. If the changes are not reflected, try refreshing it one more time. In other words, you need to be able to self-diagnose if it's not updating by either refreshing it or even restarting your server. But most of the time, when you do something like right now, I'm going to add a paragraph. And just like we did with HTML, I'm going to use lorem and I'll just say lorem 50. And then I'm going to hit my tab key and will create like a fake paragraph for me. And if you don't remember this from a couple of weeks ago, do not worry. It doesn't matter what's up there. I just created a paragraph and you can see the paragraph is appearing here. But this paragraph is not essential. Whatever you want to put in there, you can. Otherwise, you can use lorem and then some sort of a number after that to generate fake text. So you do lorem, let's say 50, and then press the tab key. And that's what I did. And I generated just this way I don't have to be creative and come up with actual words. These are garbage words that don't mean anything. It just generated it for us. Just a placeholder. So at this point, I don't like the way it looks, the styling. So I want to change it. So first thing I'm going to do is go into this file called index.css. This is where all your styling is, index.css. And I don't like any of this styling. Okay, so I'm gonna delete all of this out in Just a minute. So I highlight everything and I'm going to hit delete. Nothing in there now. And let's see what happens to my browser. Okay, that's what it looks like. And I'm okay with that. I don't want anything, so go ahead and delete everything out in the index.css file. And we're doing this because we're going to create our own style. I don't like their styles. And after you've deleted it, make sure you save it. And then if you look, it should look something like this. So what's happening right now is the browser is saying, okay, I will use this for H1. I will use this for H2. I'll use this for paragraph. Who's deciding it? The browser. In this case, I'm using Chrome. Chrome is deciding what it looks like. Not me, not you. We're just leaving it to Chrome. If I open the same thing up in a different browser, it may look the same, it may not look the same. Um, Another browser might move November 3rd to middle, this thing to middle, or H1 to middle, and this one to the left. I don't know. The browser decides, and I don't really want that. I want us to be able to decide these things, and we're going to do that next. So I'm going to open up. If you recall, last class I had introduced Tailwind CSS. So I'm going to Google this, how to install Tailwind CSS and something called Shared CN to React app. So I'm going to Google this. Now be very careful when you Google. Again, I'm doing this specifically so you can see that there are problems. It's giving me some instructions on how to do this, but you have to be very careful if you start following their instructions, because you may not realize that Tailwind just came up with a new version, and these instructions that you're getting from Google are no longer valid. So you may think that you're doing things the right way, but if I started following these instructions and I started installing it, I'm going to get some sort of an error message, or it will not work, basically. So the right thing to do is not, this is what I was telling you, got to follow instructions very specifically in these setups, because there are many different ways of doing it. And most of the AI tools are not aware that a new version was just released. And they will give you instructions, or they will give you code for the old version. And I think so. The best thing to do is not to follow these instructions, but go right to the actual source. So I don't want to look at Google. I'm going to look at basically Tailwind itself. And we also want to be using something called Shared CN, but I want to really use because I was installing Tailwind and Shared CN. So notice over here it says version 4. That's actually the latest version. So I'm going to just go in here. And once I'm in here, I'm going to look at getting started. And I could Google for Tailwind CSS by itself and go to their website. So this is Tailwind CSS website. So in here, you'll notice we are at version 4.1. Most of the instructions that are on the web are for version 3.4. In other words, when we went from 3.4 to 4.1, this was relatively recently. And AI tools as well as search engines have not caught up. So you want to make sure you're using the version that I'm telling you to use, which is the latest one. And then you're looking up the instructions in docs. And I'm giving you the instructions, but you look it up. Now, even in here, look at how you install it. You can use something called Vite. You can use Post CSS. You can use something called Tailwind CLI or Framework Guide, different ways. Now, you remember earlier on, I had used this thing called Vite. So I'm going to stick with this one, Vite. And that has its own set of instructions. If I went to, let's say, Tailwind CLI, it has its own instructions. So I want to avoid using multiple sets of instructions. I want to stick with one technique, which is this one. And again, if you look at it, using Vite, it says npm create Vite at latest, blah, blah, blah. And then to install Tailwind, we've actually already done this part. It says npm install Tailwind, blah, blah, blah. They give you instructions here. Now, we've already done this. We created our React project already. So step one is create a project. We did that. We are now in step two. And it's not just one step here. There are a bunch of steps we have to follow afterwards, which can be confusing, which is why I want you to make sure that this is where you go to, because obviously I'm going to do it in front of you, but I'm giving you the exact this. So this is to install Tailwind. So we are using Vite, and there are many competing technologies, and everyone does things a little bit differently, but this is one of the most popular ones, this thing called Vite. And I'm doing it just so that we have consistency. Everybody's doing it the same way. So I'm going to follow those instructions. I don't really need this index.css at this time, so I'm going to just close out of it. I don't really need this file open at this particular point in time, so I can just close out of it. I also don't need app.tsx, so I'm going to close out of it. I'll expand this up a little bit because I will need this. Now, for me to be able to run my commands, I have a couple of choices. I can let my server keep running and open up a new terminal. So now I've got two terminals, and that's okay. Or I can go in and just delete out my terminal. So I'm going to delete everything. I'm talking terminals, okay? So this terminal, if you don't want it, I want to delete it, I'll delete it. So now if I went back to my page and I try to refresh it, my server is not running anymore. What we're about to do is something somewhat major. That's why I would just close out the server because I will most likely need to restart it. So that's why I just went in and I shut it down. I'm going to open it up again. Go back to where the instructions are. And I don't want to follow Google instructions. I want to go, and I mean, this is Shatsi and we're going to need this. But for right now, I don't want to go in here or in here. I want to go directly to Tailwind. And I end up having a little bit of a problem because my Zoom takes up space. I can't always click on things. Okay, so I'm back to this one. And the first step we have already done. This is the where you're going to begin. Start with step 2. You're going to copy this and paste it in your code. A quick way of pasting it is doing right click. And I'm going to do that. Or whatever way you have to paste into your code, you should figure out on your system. But on Windows, right click and it will paste it for you. And I'm going to hit enter to let it do the installation. And it has installed it. Added, again, I'm going to maximize my screen. So it told me added 18 packages and so on and so forth. We're good. So I am done with step 2. I installed it. Now, step 3, configure the Wheat plugin. Add tailwind.css dash this plugin to your Wheat configuration. So there is a file which is called wheat.config.ts. In that file, I need to add an import statement and then this. I gotta do 2 separate things. So I'm gonna first copy this. Because I really don't want to be typing it. I'm going to find this file called wheat.config.ts. So I go in here and I see I have a file called wheat.config.ts. I'm going to bring that up. And I don't need my terminal right now, so I'm going to close it or delete it. I like to delete it. So now that I have this thing up here, I have to add an import statement. And I ended up not copying it correctly. So this was the command to install Tailwind. So when I copied it, it did not copy it properly. So I got to go back and make sure I copy it again. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to highlight it. Then I'm going to click right click and say copy. I thought I had copied it. It was giving me trouble. Let's find out if it's better now. So now I've got my import statement up there. The squiggly yellow line is nothing to worry about. It just says you're importing something that you're not using. Like if I highlight over it, it's saying you declared it, but you're not using it. It's not the same thing as a red squiggly line, which says there's an error. Yellow is a warning. There may be something wrong, and I know there isn't anything wrong. So, but if there was a red squiggly line, that means there's some sort of an error. Yellow, don't be concerned. So I did the first part. I got this in there. The second part is I gotta type in tailwind.css followed by comma inside these plugins. So in here, you see, there's a plugin and it says React on it already because we're using React. Now we are adding another plugin, which is called tailwind.css. So right here, again, I copied it, it messed up. It's not copying it correctly. I'm going to go back up, copy it one more time, and try to paste it in here. And now I'm good. So this is what it should look like. Notice this is different from theirs. They don't have React in there because they don't know we are using React. Tailwind is completely separate from React. They don't know what I'm using. So I'm using Tailwind and React. So for me, this is what it should look like. For you, this is what it should look like. And sometimes to make it easier to read, you can push things on a different line, and that's completely okay. And I like doing that. This is how I typically like to write it. It's the exact same thing, no difference. So you have this, that for Tailwind, this is what you need to do next. And I'm going to leave this up for a minute or two. Please make sure you have it exactly the way I've done it. Next step. We just finished step 3. Import Tailwind CSS to your CSS file. So it's very broad. It's just saying import it, but where? It doesn't know we are using React because you can use many different technologies with Tailwind. It doesn't know that we're using React. So it just says import your CSS file. But where? So I'm going to first highlight it. Or let me copy it from here. I need to import it into my CSS. So for us, that's going to be index.css. So right at the top, I need to say add import CSS. So this next step, step 4, is to our index.css. So in here, I'm going to indicate step 4, import into index.css. Because they don't tell you this in the instructions. And I've done that. And then it's saying start your build process, which is another way of saying you're good to go. So I'm going to npm run dev. We've done that before. So I'm going to come back here. This is all I needed to add to get all sorts of CSS working in my project. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to close my Vite. I'm going to go back to my app.tsx. And for now, I'm going to just start it up. And the way I'm going to do that is open up my terminal. And I'm going to say npm run dev. Start it up. I'm going to go look at my website. I'll refresh it to make sure it's running. And I want you to notice the H1 and H2 and paragraph, they all look the same now because Tailwind is telling the browser, don't do anything. It's different from before. Tailwind in saying, ignore everything and make it look all the same. So by adding that import into our CSS, don't do this, I'm gonna delete it for a minute. I'm gonna get rid of import. I'm gonna X out of this and leave this blank. Now I don't have any CSS. And now the browser is in charge. It is going to style the way it thinks it ought to be. So when we go into index.css and I tell it import Tailwind CSS, the first thing it does, it tells the browser, hey, you are not in charge anymore. I'm in charge. And I want it to look like this, which basically means there's no difference between H1 or H2 or paragraph. They all look the same. And that's intentional. Because maybe I don't want my H1 to look big. Maybe my H1 should be red. So my rule is H1 is red, H2 is blue, and paragraph is green. That's what I want. And I want it to be the exact same font size. So how am I going to do that? So I'm going to go back to the Tailwind, and if you go to back to home page, I'm going to click on this. And usually once you're back to home page, you can look at docs, which is sort of where we were, and it guides you as to what to do. If you guys really want to become an expert at it, and this is what is being used right now. This is whatever I'm teaching you is the most recent current industry standard stuff. So they even have a course. I have not seen this course before, but there is a course here which teaches you. They have a wait list, but you could take a course like this, but there are many Tailwind courses out there. For this one, you have to pay money, and it's right now, I would say it's not worthwhile for anybody to be paying for this. So I would not be recommending it. You can go to YouTube, and there are a lot of free courses available. Just look for Tailwind 4.1 or higher, or just 4.1 right now. There's nothing higher, but you need that if you're learning it because it's a little bit different, not much, but a little bit different from previous versions. So once I'm in here, I'm looking at the documentation and it's telling you how do you use Tailwind. So you can style with what's called utility classes. You can have a dark mode, colors, a bunch of stuff. And I'm going to start off with just looking at this. Styling with utility classes, and let's just see what it tells us, giving us some examples of things. And for me, I'm interested in things like how it's displayed, or the margins, or the background color. So I'm going to just start off with talking about the text size, the font size. or the font color. And let's focus on font color for now. So I click on it and it tells me all the different options that I have available. So I want red, and you'll see like within red, they have, it begins at 50 and goes all the way up to 950. So this are different shades of red. So I'm going to start off my project using text, red, and let's start off at 200. So in my app.tsx, I want it to say that H1 should be, you have to use something called class name. And then in there, I want my text to be red 200. So this, and I go and look at my page. Up there, it's hard to see, but I have my text in red 200. And because it's hard to see, I will change this to a bright red, which the brightest is 950. So text red 950. I don't know how, I'm not seeing it. Before I did see it, but it was very light. So something is wrong. So the very first thing is refresh it. And it did not make any difference. My next thing would be go back and make sure you haven't made a mistake in typing any of this stuff up. Text red 950. I don't see a mistake. Third thing I can do is right here, I'll stop my server. Then I'll restart my server, npm run dev. Go back in, refresh it. I'm still not seeing any change. Now, next thing I'm going to do, I saw a change when I had 200. So I'm going to try to go not 950, but I'm going to go, let's try 900. And then see if it made a difference. No, I'm not seeing anything at this time. I think I saw it when I went before. So at this point, I am not sure why it is not responding. I gotta check my index, make sure I have imported it, which I did. I'll go back and check my wheat. And I do have React as well as Tailwind CSS. So right now I actually do not know. Now I'm not playing a game. It should be working. At this point, I am unsure. Or if it is, I'm not able to tell the color. I think now I just see it working. Are you guys seeing it in red or no? I was not seeing it before. Now I am. Okay, so you guys are now seeing it as well. I don't know if you were seeing it before. I was not seeing it before. That's why I went in and was modifying. For me, I'm gonna try doing something different now. So all of my configurations are correct, but if something wasn't working and I thought it wasn't working, but it looks like it is working. But to really see it a little bit better, I can modify the size. So I'm going to go back. Font size. I'm going to make it much bigger. So some of the options are text, extra small, small. base, which is what we have right now, large, and then if you really want it to be very large, you can go text 9XL, which will be ridiculously large, but that's what I want to do. So right here, I can type in text dash 9XL and go back. And you can see how big it is. Now it's obviously way too big. So let me make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go in here and notice it's 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, but there's no 1. It's just text XL. So, and I'm going to go with text 2XL. And now look at it, and it's up there. So it's twice the size of this one. If I just wanted the base, I can say text base. So I'm going to change it to base or leave it blank, but I want it to be base. So it should be the same size as the rest, but I don't want it to be the same size. And for something like this, I probably will want to use 3 or 4XL. I think I'm going to go with the 4XL. Next, let's worry about this one, H2. So I'm going to follow the same process. In here, I will add what's called class name. And then I'm going to say text dash blue. And I want it to be 600. I don't want it to be too dark, but dark. And then I'll make the text 2XL, twice as large. So we shouldn't see a significant difference between the two. Let's create another H2. So if I come down here, I'm going to create another H2 now. Again, I'm just putting any garbage in there. And typically when I have to just put garbage, I use lorem. So in here, I will just say lorem 10. It has to be lorem 10, and then I press the tab key. So it just created an H2 for me. So I've got that, and I created another lorem H2. It looks exactly like this. In other words, just because I made this H2 like that doesn't mean that the next H2 will be automatically like that. And that is a good thing or a bad thing. Because now, for my next H2, I gotta do, if I want it to look exactly the same, I gotta copy this in there. Obviously, there are better ways of doing it, but I'm showing you that you've got to do it a second time if you want it to be the same. So one of the advantages of using Tailwind is you can customize it however you want. Nothing is global. You just go in, you decide what you want, and you do it. It becomes difficult to do this. So what I would typically do is I'm going to revert now to my base, get rid of all these H1s and all that. I'll leave H1, but I'm getting rid of all the styling. And you don't have to do it, just watch. But I am going to do it because I want you to understand how you probably want to do things, and there are different ways of doing it. So, me, if I'm using Tailwind, I will copy my whole thing, copy it, and then I go into an AI tool. And for styling, I like DeepSeek the best. And I'm going to say to it, style using Tailwind CSS 4 plus, meaning I'm telling it use version 4 or beyond. And at this point, I can give it some guidance. I can tell it use vibrant neon colors. Again, I'm giving it this guidance just so we get colors which are really bright. Ensure high contrast. Okay, so this, and then I will paste in my code. So I'm pasting in my unstyled code, and I'm giving it instructions to do this. And I'm telling it use Tailwind CSS 4 plus, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to send it. And you can do whatever you want on your own. So it's now telling me that it's going to do neon glow effect with shadows and layers and all of that. And it has generated a bunch of code for us, including something with style at the end, which is regular CSS type styles at the end. And I wanted it to stick as much as possible to Tailwind, and it did do that. But then it added even more stuff that regular Tailwind could not do. So I'm going to just copy it and paste it in here. And take a look at my site. So it made it really big. I'm gonna check what my zoom level is. I'm gonna zoom it to like a normal size. I wanted vibrant, high contrast colors. Well, it did that for me. And you can put whatever you want in there. But remember, we're using Tailwind 4 Plus. And again, you don't necessarily need to understand everything in there, but This is one way. Now, I want you to notice something. This is H2 and this was H2. And for whatever reason, it was decided by DeepSeek to style these two differently. And that is generally not a good idea. Generally, you want to have consistency. So somebody who looks at your project knows that this is H2, H2. We're not trying to make it look colorful. We're trying to make it understandable. Somebody should be able to, I'm not trying to create a work of art or something like that. So if you go back and you look at the code, look at the styling for H2. It's still an H2. It styled it very differently than this H2. This is 3XL. This is 2XL, twice as long. Why would it do that? I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense, at least to me. And these are potential problems that you're going to run into if you do, if you're using these tools and it's not doing things what I call intelligently. So with Tailwind, you can go in and customize, but it becomes very cumbersome unless you're really trying to create like a very unique looking website. Yeah, you can do this, but generally you want there to be consistency in your styles. So how do we do that? We do that using something called shared CN in addition to Tailwind. So I want to get rid of this. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to just Control Z out of it. And this takes me back to my original page. And you can see that's what it looks like. No Tailwind, nothing in here. And it's too much work to just use Tailwind by itself. It is excellent, but you gotta do a lot of work for styling yourself, or you gotta use AI tool. And AI tool, in my opinion, just did a very foolish thing. H2 should look alike unless I'm telling it otherwise. I did not say that, right? It should know better. It didn't. So how do you get around this? You use something called shared CN. So SHAD CN, and I think it's .com, and I'm not sure. I don't think that's it. Let me just Google shared CN. So it's supposed to be ui.shadcn.com. So, and I didn't do that. So what we are now using is Tailwind 4. So ShatCN goes hand in hand with Tailwind. So I'm going to bring this up. How to use ShatCN with Tailwind 4 and React 19. Are we using React 19? Yes, because that's the latest version and it's been out for a while. A while means like probably at least 6 months to a year. So any new search results should have this. But that's what we are using right now. And I need to figure out how to install it. So I'm going to go to Get Started. So I'm going to be using use shared CN with Tailwind CSS. and it's basically ui.sharedcn.com, and you'll see instructions up there for using it with Tailwind. And I went under Get Started, and in here I have to be very careful. I'm looking at the right set of instructions. It's got a lot of stuff in here, but that's not what I'm looking for. Look to see if there's a installation, and I see that right here. Then it says pick your framework. Next, wheat, a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm using wheat so far. So it will be easiest if you stick with wheat. You'll run into trouble if you don't. Instructions are very specific to wheat. Last week we were using Next.js. It has its own instructions. Today or next class, we're going to start using this thing, React Router. It has its own set of instructions. So right now we are using this thing called Wheat. So I'm going to follow those instructions. And even within those, you can use things like PNP, NPM, yarn, bun, and we have been using NPM all along. So just be careful of what you look up. So in the instruction, that's saying create a project. We have done that already. So this doesn't apply to us. It says add Tailwind CSS. We did that already. Then replace everything in index.css. So this is being more specific. Why? Because it knows we are trying to use React. It's assuming it, but that is the correct assumption. So we did this already. Replace everything, and we did the import here. Then it said edit tsconfig file. We did that already, but we didn't do this stuff. We did not actually, we did vs config that we edited. We did not edit this one. So it's very specific in what it wants us to do. So in here, there is something called edit tsconfig file. And we need lines 11 through 16. So I'm going to just highlight it, try to copy it, and I'm going to right click, copy. I'm going to look for this file, tsconfig.json. So I'm going to go in here, look at tsconfig, not node.json, just tsconfig.json. And right here, after this, notice they put a comma, and then I have to insert this, and then there should be just one curly braces left at the end. So I gotta make sure I put a comma, which I did not copy. Then in here, I'm gonna paste. And then after I do this, there should just be one curly brace after that. So once I paste it, and I don't have to do this, but I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get rid of some spacing in here. I want it to look like this. So there should be a curly brace, curly brace, curly brace, square parentheses. One curly brace, two curly brace, three curly brace, square parentheses. Then this stuff, compilation options, and then line 10, square brackets, comma. You've got to make sure it's exactly like this, exactly like what I have done. And what I'm going to do is do a screenshot. But all those parentheses and this and that, and capitalization, it matters. So after this step, it says edit tsconfig.app.json. Isn't that the one I was doing? Edit tsconfig.json. Now it's not the same one. Now it's edit tsconfig.app.json. It's telling us all of these things. So what do you want to do in there? There's something called compiler options, a whole bunch of stuff. But lines 4 through 9 need to be added. So I'm going to copy these. Go in here. Now I'm looking for tsconfig.app.json. And it's got a lot of stuff in here. I'm looking under compiler options because that's what it's telling me to look under. It says this stuff is part of what's called compiler options. So it opens up, it has a whole bunch of stuff. That's why they have the dot, dot, dot. And it can even continue having stuff. But within it, I should be pasting this code. So I'm going to just copy this, go to my file. So it's sort of this bundler options will be coming. I don't want to worry about those. I'm going to go in here, like right here. I'm going to paste it. So all of this stuff, and I want to make sure that I align it. So this is what I just pasted, but you'll see I sort of messed something up down here. And the reason is I need to put a comma at the end. So I can leave the space in there, and I'm gonna do that just so if you're doing it, you can double check that you've done it correctly. So under compiler options, this is again, if something is not working, you're able to go back and make sure that you get it exactly right, even though you have, again, instructions here, but it's doing it first time, like they don't tell you about a comma. You need to know about small things like that. Then they tell you update your vite.config.ts. And in order to do that, they tell you to first do this. I'm going to copy this, go to and I'm going to stop my server from running. I'm going to paste it in and hit enter. So this was the first step that I needed to do. And next, and just bear with me, Zoom is getting in my way. Okay, so once I have done that, I installed it. You should get basically a message saying something to this effect. 47 packages, all of that. So to make sure you should get a message similar to this. But we're not done. This is why it's fairly extensive. Over and over again, you gotta fix things. Then in your Vite config file, I just did this part, installation. Then modify your Vite config file. Make sure it has Tailwind in there, which it actually already does. So if I go to I'm gonna close out of this one. This is my Vite config.ts. So notice I already have my Tailwind. It doesn't know I have it, so it's telling me, hey, make sure you have Tailwind in there. But in addition, it's saying import path from path, and I don't have that. So first thing I'm gonna do is copy that. So in my vite.config.ts, vite.config.ts, I'm gonna just delete this right at the top. I want to have an import statement. Now the order does not matter. So I could have put it at the bottom, but I just did it. So order does not matter. And those yellow squiggly lines do not matter. All they are doing is telling me that I have not yet used it. I have to use it. And in order to do that, I look in here. And it's saying under this thing called define config, you should have a plugin, which we actually already do. We did that earlier on. So plug in, and we had all of this up to this point. So we already have all of this up to this point. So it's saying after the plugin, which should have React and Tailwind, then it wants us to put down this all the way down to this. And again, I'm copying it. I'm going to go in here and paste it right after that comma. Once I have pasted it, we should be good. So this is the final of what vite.config should look like. And when I'm posting these, most of the time I have the file name up there. In some places I do not, like even, like in here, because this was just from the terminal. But most places, when you're looking at it, if it's important, I would put the file name in there when I'm doing screenshots. So are we done yet? Almost. Then it's saying run the CLI. And we're going to use npm, and we got to type this in or run this command. So I'm going to copy it, go back, make sure my terminal is open. I'm going to paste this in there. npx shatcn at latest init. And when I do that, it's going to create like another folder for us and stuff like that. And it's asking us, what color scheme do you want? And I will tell you for now, just say neutral. But it doesn't matter. You can put any one you want. I'm just going with neutral because I'm going to end up changing it in a little while anyway. So it says success project has been initialized or it's been created. Now you may add components. So what are components? That's what we actually wanted. That's why we're doing all of these things. Add components. And the first one we're going to add is a button component. So I'm going to copy this. Again, go back to my terminal and I'm going to add a button component. So once it's been done successfully, you will see under assets, it will create a folder called components. Then it will have a UI folder and then the button in there. And for now, we don't need to worry about it, but we just created what's called a button. And the same format we had to create a button, we can use that to add lots and lots of different components. So let me see if I can give you an example. These are components. So what we just did is we added a button component, but you can add a whole bunch of these things. This makes it very easy for you to create your website. Extremely easy. And it will have a nice style, consistent look, all of that. So I just want to stick with button for right now. And we'll talk about this. But other things that you can do with this is you can use what's called theming. So with themes, you can set it up so that, again, I use AI to do all of this stuff for me, so that you can have pretty much any color scheme you want and it will be applied consistently. You don't have to do things basically on your own. It will be done for you. So we'll discuss that, but for now, I want to go back to button. So within button component, there are so many variations available. This is one type of button. And a lot of variations available, and we'll have to, we'll go through the documentation and figure out what it is. So I'm just going down the list where they give some examples of buttons, how you can increase the size of a button, outline buttons, secondary button, ghost button, destructive button, which is like a red in color. So you got, or a link button. You got a bunch of options in here, or an icon button. So it makes it very easy for you to create professional looking websites with virtually no graphic designing experience. And me, I have zero talent in selecting colors and designing and all of that. But this makes it very easy for me to do pretty much whatever I want. So I'm gonna go back to my app.tsx page, and I am going to add a button at the end. So I'm going to just start typing button, and then I'm going to just say submit. And let me restart my server, npm run dev, and let's see what this button looks like. All right. I mean, notice at this point, Tailwind is installed, Shared CN is installed, and I've got a pretty ugly looking button. It doesn't even really look like a button. Like if I hover over it, it doesn't even show like a hover effect or anything. But if I click submit, I can't even tell that it's doing anything or not. It's really ugly looking button. Multiple reasons why that is the case. The first one is I used small cap in my button. Yep, that is a button, but that's not a shared CN button. So you have to be careful. First thing I should do is make it a capital B. Now, when I make it a capital B, I'm getting a red squiggly underline because it doesn't know what I'm talking about. This is small b was HTML. Capital B, it has no idea what it is. And the reason is that you have to import this button. So I'm going to go at the top and right above export default, I need to import button. So I'm going to import. So what am I trying to do? Import button. Where am I importing it from? From my component where I have this thing called button. So when I do that, it imports this button in for me. Now you'll see down below, it's not a squiggly line anymore. And it's a better looking button. But even now, if I'm going over it, it's not showing a hover effect or anything else, but it's better looking than it was before. This is a built-in component button. And you can customize this very easily by using things in here like what's called a variant. And I can tell it to be a ghost button. And then look and see, this is the ghost button. Or I can tell it that I want it to be a destructive button. I want it to be a destructive button. That gives me like a red colored button. So with ChatCN, it is what's called a component library. It's a component library. It can also be used for what's called making themes and stuff like that. And down here, they're all different sorts of components that you can use to make it look better, to do various things to make it look better, create forms, stuff like that. So if I look maybe under authentication, I'm not sure what would be in there, but I'm gonna just go down and quickly see if there are any images that I have. I'm not really seeing any images. Okay, again, I don't directly use this, the authentication thing, but you've got a bunch of things that you can possibly do. So we started off with buttons, and but we're not going to leave it at buttons, obviously. I'm going to do one more thing, and then that would be it for today's class. When we started, I told you to just use neutral colors. So now what I can do is go back to Chat DeepSeek, and I'm going to tell it something similar. I'm going to copy this, but I'm going to open up a new tab. And I'm going to say, again, I'll paste this. Come on. Each time I copy it, I run into a problem. My copy and paste is not working well. So open up a new one. I'm going to paste it in. So, but now I don't want it to help me just style using Tailwind 4. I'm also going to tell it style using Tailwind CSS 4 plus and shared CN. Use vibrant colors, ensure high contrast, and develop a theme. And let me be more specific. Develop a shared CN theme for me. Ensure that it is using Tailwind 4 or later, because give me full installation instructions. I already have a React Vite project with Tailwind, CSS, and shared CN install. I'm telling it all of these things because otherwise it will start telling me how to create a React project, this and that. I don't want that. I just want it to help me develop a neon colored high contrast theme. And if I want, I can be very specific. It should be in the shade of purple or blue or whatever. I can tell it. And I can in here say, don't generate code yet. Tell me my color options first. So now I'm telling it here, don't start just generating code. I want to be able to customize it still further. So yes, I want neon colors. I want it to be high contrast, but guide me. What are my options? So I'm gonna let this run. And so first option, cyberpunk green, electric blue. And it goes into and explains what that would look like. Second one, hot pink and acid purple. Okay, it will explain that. Third one, electric, cyan, and magenta. And recommendation and rationale, it's saying option one is the best for a classic neon feel. It would be green, blue combination, very high contrast, and so on and so forth. And it started giving me code even though I did not want it. Okay, this is a problem. Usually, if you're using Gemini, it doesn't give you much. If you're using DeepSeek, it sometimes gives you too much. So, so let's say once you choose, let's say option one, and I don't want to choose option one, even though it's recommending it. I want to go with option three. Okay. And so I'm going to tell it use option three, ensure, again, I'm reminding it, ensure that it is compatible with Tailwind CSS 4 or later. And that can also have an effect on Acct343, but this is what I'm going to tell it. So now it's going to give me instructions of what needs to be done. And as I'm looking at it, it's not giving me the right answer. Okay. And this is why you cannot blindly rely on this. It's telling me that Tailwind CSS4 has some things, and it's telling me to make these changes. So Tailwind config 4, you see this right here, and if you go, I don't have anything called Tailwind config. That was the old technology before version 4. So even though I'm reminding it multiple times that, hey, give me the latest blah, 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 the instructions it's giving me here are not correct. So I'm going to just look through it, but I know this is not right. Here, it seems to be okay. So this is where it actually is generating the colors for me. And right now, all of this looks okay. So what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to copy this one. And I'm going to go to my index.css. And it has a lot of stuff in here now, which we did not put in there. And the reason it has that is because we installed Acct343 with a neutral color. And I don't want Acct343 with a neutral color. So I can now go in and replace this whole file with what was generated for me. And we most likely are okay, but I cannot tell you for sure because I know it was giving us something which was not quite correct. So there seems to be a little bit of a problem from what I'm seeing here. Again, I'm not sure. Even though I pasted this in here, what I would probably do at this stage is double check it by going into another tool like Gemini. Or I'll just say update this to work with Tailwind CSS 4 dash shatcn give install instructions. Again, if I wanted to, I would be telling it project is all set up and all that, but I'm pasting what I got from DeepSeek in here, and I'm gonna send it and see what it has to do and say. So it's telling me here that version 4 is using something called at theme, which is correct. Okay. So, and for ShatCN, again, it's going to be guiding me in here. So it's saying updated your global CSS or index.css. We are using index.css. It's giving me that. I'm going to copy it, go back and update this file. And hopefully it's fixed it, but not, I have to go through all of the instructions, make sure it's working. So there are additional instructions. We have already done a lot of the stuff here. Again, we have done all of these things. And it's giving me more instructions here. So as of right now, what I'm going to do is just start it. Even though it's showing me an error message, we'll have to figure out why it's doing that. But I'm going to go into terminal and it's already running, but I'm going to stop it because we just made some major changes. Run it one more time and view my page. And you can see, it's there, but I'm not seeing anything which is what I would call neon. Yep, I got my dark background, this and that, but I'm not quite seeing. So we're going to need to keep working with it. And we're going to end the class now. I'm exactly at 9:05, and I only gave a 5-minute break today. So we're going to end the class here. We're going to continue this next week. We're not done with the styling, long way to go. And then most likely next week after this, I'm going to go into the database and we'll be putting these things together. Any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.